We spend so much time thinking about our valuable assets, our house, our car, making sure we have enough for retirement. But what about something even more essential? Something we carry with us everywhere, our personal information.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook.
Today, we're going deep on pretexting, where criminals use our personal data as their prize.
Hmm.
To help us, we've got the Federal Trade Commission's Guide for Consumers. It's called FTC Facts for Consumers. We're going to figure out what exactly pretexting is, how these schemes even work, how it all ties into identity theft, and of course, the most important part, how we can protect ourselves.
Sounds good.
The FTC, they're a pretty reliable source, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're the main federal agency that deals with consumer protection. They've got tons of information and resources on scams, fraud, identity theft, all that stuff.
So skimming through this guide, there are a few things that really stood out to me. First, these pretexters, they can trick you into giving up your info and then turn around and sell it.
Yep, data's a valuable commodity these days.
And they can act like they're from legit organizations.
Oh yeah, that's a classic tactic. Makes them seem more believable.
And here's the kicker. This whole thing, pretexting, it's illegal. There are actual laws designed to protect us.
That's right. There are some pretty serious consequences if they get caught.
Okay, let's bring in our expert who can really help us break this down. So, when we talk about pretexting, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, pretexting is basically a form of social engineering where someone uses deception to obtain personal information from you. They create a believable scenario, a pretext, to trick you into trusting them.
So, like, what are some examples?
Well, the guide gives a good example. They might pose as a surveyor.
A surveyor. Okay, I don't see how that would work.
It's simpler than you might think. Let's say you get a call from someone claiming to be conducting a survey about, oh, I don't know, neighborhood improvements.
Sounds harmless enough.
Right, exactly. They might ask some basic questions. Your age, how long you've lived in the area, what kind of car you drive, do you have a pet, things like that. You're thinking, it's just a survey. What's the harm?
And that's how they get you.
Exactly. They're not actually interested in your opinions on the new park. They're gathering those little bits of personal information to build a profile that they can then use to target you more effectively.
So it's like a stepping stone.
Precisely. They use those initial details to then contact, say, your financial institution pretending to be you. They might claim to have forgotten their account details, need to verify a recent transaction, whatever. And because they now have some specific personal details, they sound much more convincing.
That's scary. They're basically using our information to create a puzzle.
And once they have enough pieces, the puzzle's complete, and bam, they can potentially open credit cards in your name, take out loans, access your existing accounts, the whole 9 yards.
Which brings us to the big one, identity theft.
Right. Pretexting can often be the gateway to full-blown identity theft.
The FTC's guide lists a bunch of different types. Let's break them down one by one. Starting with, I guess, the most obvious one, credit card fraud.
Yeah, that's a common one. They either get your credit card information through pretexting or some other means, and they go on a shopping spree.
So they could just buy stuff online?
Oh yeah, online shopping, restaurants, stores, anything really.
Wow, so they could just open new accounts too.
Absolutely. And then you've got things like communication services fraud.
Communication services.
Yeah, they might use your info to set up phone or internet accounts. Next thing you know, you're getting bills for services you never even used.
What a mess that would be to sort out. And what about bank fraud? I feel like that could get really bad really quickly.
It can be devastating. Imagine logging into your bank account and finding it completely empty because someone opened an account in your name, wrote bad checks, or even drained your existing accounts.
Talk about a financial nightmare.
And we can't forget about fraudulent loans.
Oh, right. So they could use your information to, what, get a car loan?
Car loans, mortgages, personal loans, anything they can get their hands on. Years down the road, you might discover these outstanding loans that you never even applied for.
So is there anything that protects us legally?
Well, there's the Identity Theft and Assumption Deterrence Act.
Okay, what does that do?
It makes it a federal crime to use someone else's personal information, their means of identification, for any unlawful activity.
So that covers like names, social security numbers.
Exactly. Credit card numbers, even your phone's electronic serial number.
Okay, so the law is on our side, but realistically, what are the most effective things we can do to protect ourselves? The FTC guide has a ton of tips, but where should we start?
The golden rule, And I can't stress this enough. Never, ever give out personal information unless you initiated the contact.
But what if they say they're from a legit company? Like, we get calls from our bank, credit card companies, even doctors' offices all the time.
That's why these scams work. They prey on our familiarity with those kinds of calls. But here's the thing. If it's really your bank or whoever, they usually already have your info. If you have any doubt, hang up and call back using the official number from their website or your statements.
So don't just take their word for it.
Exactly. Always verify. And another crucial step is to be aware of your statement cycles. When you usually get your bank statements, credit card bills, all that, if something doesn't arrive on time, follow up immediately.
Ah, so a delayed statement could be a red flag.
It could be. And when you do get your statements, really look at them carefully, every single transaction. Don't just skim the total. And report any discrepancies to your bank or card company right away.
So vigilance is key. But this all feels like a lot to keep track of. What about everyday things we can do at home?
You'd be surprised how many people overlook basic security measures at home. Be mindful of where you leave your personal information, even within your own home.
So, like, don't leave bills and statements lying around.
Exactly. Keep those documents in a safe place. And shred anything you're discarding that has personal info, like receipts, old credit applications, anything like that.
Out of sight, out of mind. Makes sense. What about online? Our lives are so digital these days.
Yeah. Strong passwords are your first line of defense online. Use a good mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. And please, for the love of all that is good, avoid using easily guessed information like your birth date or pet's name.
No more password 123.
Absolutely not. Hackers can crack those kinds of passwords in seconds. You also want to be super wary of phishing scams. Those are those emails or websites that look like they're from a legit company, but they're actually fake, designed to trick you into giving away your logins.
Oh yeah, I've gotten those before.
They're getting more sophisticated all the time. Always look out for misspellings, weird grammar, anything off about the sender's address or the website URL. When in doubt, don't click on anything or enter any information. Better safe than sorry.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. But what if, despite all our best efforts, we become victims of identity theft? What should we do?
Well, the FTC has a clear plan of action in the guide. First things first, report it to your financial institution immediately.
Close any compromised accounts, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Then get in touch with the fraud departments of the 3 big credit reporting companies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and put a fraud alert on your credit report.
So it's like a triple whammy.
Yep, makes it harder for the identity thieves to open more accounts in your name. And be sure to file a police report, even if they can't catch the person right away. Having that police report can help you when you're trying to clear up your credit history later.
Good to know.
And finally, file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. They have a dedicated identity theft hotline, and you can also file a report online.
So we've got our financial institutions, the credit reporting agencies, the police, and the FTC, everyone involved.
Exactly. You want to activate that whole network of support. It can feel overwhelming, but trust me, taking these steps early can save you a world of headache down the road.
I believe it. The guide also talks about resources specifically for victims. Is there anything that stands out?
The FTC has this booklet, Take Charge, Fighting Back Against Identity Theft, that you can get for free from their website. It has all the info you need on minimizing your risk, steps to take if you become a victim, even a list of other government resources.
That sounds super helpful. And the guide also emphasizes checking our credit reports regularly. Why is that so important in the fight against identity theft?
Your credit report is like a snapshot of your financial history, your accounts, any potential issues. And you can get a free credit report from each of the 3 main credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, every year.
Wait, we can get them for free?
Yep, absolutely free. It's one of the best ways to catch mistakes or any signs of fraud early on. You can spot accounts you didn't open, wrong information, or any suspicious activity.
So it's like a checkup for our credit health.
Exactly. And it's easy to do. You can go to annualcreditreport.com, call a toll-free number, or even mail in a request. The guide has all the details.
Wow, no excuses then. We can all be in charge of our credit and stay ahead of those identity thieves. But we've just scratched the surface here. There's still so much to learn when it comes to protecting ourselves in this digital world.
Oh, there's always more to learn. It's a constantly changing landscape.
I mean, the guide mentions being careful about where we leave personal information at home. But how do we balance convenience with security when everything is online? It feels like we're always asked to share more and more information. Where do we draw the line?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely dig into in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll be exploring that and more, taking a closer look at the ever-evolving landscape of digital security and privacy.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, isn't it? We want the convenience of online shopping, social media, all that, but we're giving away our data without really thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like we just click accept without even reading what we're agreeing to.
And that's the problem. It's not just about individual scammers. It's about the big picture, the companies that collect and store our data.
So it's a double-edged sword. We need to be careful ourselves, but these companies also need to handle our information responsibly.
Exactly. We need to be asking the tough questions like, what are they doing to protect our data? How are they using it? What happens if there's a breach?
Makes you wonder, are some people more susceptible to pretexting than others? Like, are people who are more trusting easier targets?
That's a really interesting question. There's definitely a psychological element to this. Scammers are good at reading people and figuring out how to manipulate them.
So they're like social engineers using our emotions to get what they want.
Exactly. They might play on your fears, your excitement, your desire to help. They might try to appear authoritative or familiar to gain your trust.
It's like they're creating a whole character just to get us to lower our guard.
And that's why being skeptical is so important. Don't take anything at face value. Ask questions, verify information, and trust your gut.
So be your own lie detector.
Exactly. You don't have to be paranoid, just informed.
Yeah.
This is all a lot of information, though. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed? Where do they even start?
That's a good question.
I'd say start small. Pick one or two things to focus on, like making your password stronger or being more careful about what you share online.
Break it down into smaller steps.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You don't have to do everything at once.
Speaking of the long game, what about new trends in pretexting and identity theft? Technology is always changing. Are scammers keeping up?
Oh, they're not just keeping up. They're often ahead of the curve. One trend we're seeing is the use of artificial intelligence.
AI for scams. That sounds scary.
It is concerning. They're using it for more sophisticated phishing attacks, to sound more like a real person, even to automate their scams.
Oh, our own technology is being used against us.
In a sense, yes. As AI gets more advanced, we can expect to see even more creative and convincing scams.
So we need to be even more vigilant, learn about new tactics. But is there anything we can do about these AI-powered scams?
The more you know about how AI is being used in scams, the better you'll be at spotting them. And there are new tools being developed to help detect and prevent these scams.
So it's an arms race, technology versus technology.
It's a constant battle, but we can win if we stay informed and stay ahead of the game.
This brings up the ethical side of using AI. It feels different when it's not a human being deceiving you, but a machine programmed to do it.
That's a really important point. As AI gets more powerful, we need to talk seriously about the ethics of using it, not just in scams, but in everything.
It's crazy how interconnected everything is. Technology, privacy, security, ethics, it's all tangled up.
It really is. That's what makes this topic so interesting. It makes us think about who we are, how we interact with technology, what kind of future we're building.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's about creating the world we want to live in.
Exactly. We all have a responsibility to be informed and help shape the future of technology.
Okay, so we've talked about the dangers of pretexting, how scammers are using technology, being vigilant, even the ethics of AI. But on a personal level, what's one piece of advice you'd give our listeners? Something they can do today to protect themselves.
Be mindful of your digital footprint. Think about all the information you share online. Do you really need to share all of it? Could it be used against you?
So be more careful about what we put out there.
Exactly. It's not about being paranoid. It's about making informed choices about your privacy. And it's never too late to start taking control of your digital footprint.
Great advice. We've focused a lot on external threats, scammers, hackers. But what about threats closer to home? What about identity theft from people we know?
It's unfortunate, but it happens more than we'd like to think. It could be family, friends, roommates, even coworkers. Be careful about who you trust with your information, even people you think you know well.
So be cautious, even in personal relationships. But how do we balance that with trust? We can't be suspicious of everyone around us.
It's a balancing act. It's not about being distrustful, but being aware of the risks and taking precautions.
So like being careful about leaving documents around and who has access to our devices.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to say no if someone asks for information you're not comfortable sharing.
This conversation has really made me think about how important it is to protect our personal information.
It's a complex world out there, but with awareness, knowledge, and a bit of caution, we can navigate it safely.
Well said. We're all in this together. By sharing information, supporting each other, and staying vigilant, we can make the digital world safer for everyone. Before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the ethical implications of AI.
You mean how it can be used for bad things like more advanced scams?
Exactly. It's amazing, and a little scary, how AI is changing cybersecurity. But it's not just about the technology, right? It's about the people using it and the choices they make.
You're absolutely right. AI is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to decide how we want to use this powerful technology and to make sure it's used ethically.
So we need to have these conversations about AI ethics, about the risks and benefits, and what protections we need to put in place.
Absolutely. These are not easy conversations, but they're essential if we want to use AI for good and avoid the potential harm.
It's like we're at a turning point, with AI offering both amazing opportunities and new challenges. The choices we make now will affect the future of our digital world.
It's a crucial moment in history. We all need to be informed, engaged, and involved in shaping the future of AI.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation. It's like we've peeled back the layers of this complicated issue, seeing the human side, the technology, and the ethical questions.
That's what's so great about these deep dives. They make us look beyond the surface and really think about the complex world around us.
This deep dive started with the FTC's guide, which is focused on the US. But what about the global landscape? Are pretexting and identity theft international problems?
Oh, absolutely. It's a global phenomenon. Some countries are even known as hotspots for these scams.
So it's not just a problem at home. We need to be careful when traveling or dealing with international businesses, too.
Exactly. And the methods they use can vary widely from country to country, making it even more difficult to stay safe.
That makes me think about international cooperation. Are countries working together to fight these crimes? I mean, scammers don't respect borders.
There is some level of cooperation with law enforcement agencies sharing information, but it's complicated. The different legal systems, cultures, and levels of technology.
So there's work to be done, but at least there's some recognition of the global scale of the problem. Speaking of global, this whole discussion has me thinking about the future. How do you see pretexting and identity theft evolving over the next few years? What should we be prepared for?
It's hard to say for sure. But one thing's for certain. These scams will keep getting more sophisticated, harder to spot.
So the cat and mouse game will continue.
Yeah, as technology gets better, the scammers will use those tools too. We might even see more scams targeting new technologies, like cryptocurrency,
Cryptocurrency, sure, that makes sense.
or even the metaverse.
The metaverse. Wait, scams in the metaverse. That sounds like something out of a movie.
It might seem far-fetched now, but as those virtual worlds become more realistic and we spend more time in them, well, scammers will follow the money and the data.
So it's a whole new world of digital threats to think about.
That's right. But there's good news too. People are more aware of these scams now and taking steps to protect themselves.
So we're getting better at spotting the warning signs.
Exactly. And new technologies are helping us detect and prevent fraud.
It's not just about being careful. It's about using technology to fight back.
Right. It's a multi-pronged approach. Education, awareness, and better technology.
This deep dive has been quite a journey. We started with that FTC guide, and we've covered so much. We talked about how scammers are using technology, the importance of being cautious, the ethical concerns with AI, and the global reach of these threats.
It's been a really interesting discussion. Hopefully our listeners are feeling more confident about protecting themselves.
I think that's the main message here. We're not helpless. We can take action to keep our information safe. And by staying informed, we can all work together to make the digital world a safer place.
I agree. It's a team effort.
This whole conversation has been really eye-opening. It's a good reminder that knowledge is power, being cautious is crucial, and we all have a responsibility to protect ourselves and each other in this constantly changing online world.
Well said.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Keep researching these issues, ask questions, and be a part of the solution.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
And for more information on pretexting, identity theft, and all things cybersecurity, head over to the FTC's website. They have a ton of great resources. Until next time, keep diving deep.